Good morning. It is Monday, June 17th. This is Daniel Wortman coming to you live from the Dreamadginate Sports Studios. It is 9 a.m. on the East Coast. This is your 6 a.m. West Coast wake-up call and all time zones in between and around the world. Thanks for tuning in this Monday morning. We have another great lineup this week. Kicking it off today with AJ Adcock, and we will be getting to him in just a few minutes. Tomorrow, I'm really excited to have on Ken Benzinger. He is the author of the book Red Card, and I'm really looking forward to that chat. Wednesday, we're going to have Jack Gidney join us again on the show to talk about the Women's World Cup, his observations so far, what he's seen and what he's looking forward to. On Thursday, we have Dawn Crow joining us on the show. And on Friday, Anthony DeChico. So another great lineup this week. Really looking forward to these chats and these conversations about the game here in the U.S., but also the game around the world, the different aspects of the game. That's one of the things that I definitely enjoy doing, and I hope that you enjoy listening to, which is looking at the game in kind of a 360 view. It's not just a myopic look at one aspect of the game. This is certainly not a show that is MLS-centric or MLS-focused or Premier League focused or just about my favorite team, Barcelona. It's not. It's about the global game and looking at the game and all over the world. And certainly in one show, we're never going to be able to pull that off. But our hope is that as we continue to do shows and have guests on, that we are able to look at all aspects of the game from a generational standpoint, young to old, from a geographical standpoint, anywhere and everywhere around the world, as well as from a systemic standpoint, top to bottom, and all of the people that are involved, different jobs, different aspects of the game, whether you're a player or a role as a coach, etc., a parent. And I enjoy that, and I enjoy these conversations, and we hope that that you do as well. And it's really the big reason why we do this show, and felt like that there was a big aspect, especially in American soccer, of really looking at the game from a global perspective and covering it in an authentic way, a way that we're willing to, set aside, personal feelings or even having to worry about paychecks or whatever, and really go into and dive into the game and cover it and have some conversations that need to be had surrounding the game. And so being able to connect with people in all levels and all aspects and getting their insight into the game. What are their experiences? What have they found to be successful? Where are the gaps? Where are the inefficiencies in the market? And Friday we were talking with Nicole Rodriguez a little bit about this with the Puerto Rican women's national team, but we've seen it over and over again. Haley Carter talking about the Afghanistan women's national team program, and we've talked to Hope Solo about the U.S. women's national team program. We've talked to countless others about other areas in the system where we have inefficiencies in the marketplace. For example, in America, you cannot build the best soccer club that you can build freely. We do not have freedom in American soccer to build as big as you want. You are limited by a system of gatekeepers. U.S. Soccer has sanctioned Major League Soccer in a way, and has allowed Major League Soccer to infiltrate its board of directors and its leadership structure to basically keep anyone else from building as big as they like. And they use rules, and they use the board to limit your ability. So you can't just go anywhere and build as much as you want or as big as you want, because they will use their influence and their power to basically try to shut you down or stifle your growth, etc. It's not a fair and open marketplace. And there are lawsuits about this right now, and we are waiting to see how some of those shape up. And and looking at the landscape of American soccer, that's a big issue, and it's a justice issue in terms of, there are communities, there are cities, there are socioeconomic groups, there are minorities. I mean, it's not limited to just one sector or an inefficiency in one way. It is across the board, an issue that we see, and it affects us all over the place. And because of that mentality, this elitist mentality, whether you are in the women's game, whether you are in the youth space, whether you are trying to build the biggest, baddest, adult club that you can build and play in the GCPL or the NPSL or NISA or USL Championship. It doesn't matter. The you feel the effects of the system, and the strange part of it is that if you're a Major League Soccer franchise, you feel it as well. You are limited by the very system that you signed up for. So everyone feels it, and it is a giant lid on this pressure cooker that is American soccer. We are being intentionally limited and stifled so that a few people can maintain control and extort the American soccer landscape for money. And that is the way the system is structured, and everyone feels it, and it's a problem, and it's something that I don't think a lot of people fully understand in terms of why there are certain pain points in American soccer, why there are certain frustrations. When we look across the board, this mentality is hurting us. It is limiting our ability to grow, to reach our potential, to be what we could be, what I think we should be, which is the greatest soccer country on earth. We are not anywhere near realizing our potential. We are not anywhere near being able to leverage our resources. And it really comes down to the fact that our system is structured in a way that limits that opportunity. It limits that ability. And it even drives away investment, and it drives away resources. We've seen it. We talked about this last week about Rocco Camiso. He, frustrated with the American system, made multiple offers. He wanted to invest and put money here, and it's not to say that he won't in the future, but he went on and decided to put some of his money and his wealth into Fiorentina in Florence, Italy, and to invest in the game at the highest level in Italy, in Serie A. And you know, I look at things like that, and we've seen ownership groups like the Fenway Sports Group who bought Liverpool and have put time and money into Liverpool, and now they've just won the Champions League. All of these groups could have been and could be in the future involved in the American soccer space if the system allows them to do what they want to do and build it as big as they want to build it. And until we have a system that invites that, we are turning away money. And so this idea that we're growing the game, or that all this money has been invested in the game, we can't measure our success based on a preset or closed system of measurements. In other words, in the absence, if we're measuring this off of zero money invested, we've invested $100 million. Okay, great job. But that's not enough. That's not actually a good way to measure. What you want to try to measure is the market. What is the market opportunity? Not what you've invested, but what is the market opportunity? What if the market opportunity was $50 million and you put in $100 million? Well, then everybody would be like, dude, you have gone over and above to put money and resources into this game. You know, the market opportunity was half of that, and you've gone all in. Incredible work. But if the market opportunity is billions of dollars, and we know this to be true, why? Because American youth soccer is a $5 billion with a B, a $5 billion per year industry. It is larger than the German Bundesliga, the top professional league in Germany. The American youth soccer space, these are your sons and daughters. That industry is a $5 billion plus per year industry. So when Major League Soccer is claiming to put all this money into the game, the money's not in Major League Soccer. They're not putting in billions. So when we measure the market, you have to recognize that at the very least, if that money was appropriated the way it is in open systems around the world, that your youth soccer space, if it was reappropriated in the right way, would be a fraction of that cost for parents and be a fraction of the size of the economy that it is now, and instead would come into American soccer at large and then be reapportioned in ways that make sense for an open system. So we know we're dealing with billions of available funding just from the marketplace without any investment or ownership investment, money coming in to the system. So when we judge, we can't judge based off of, we've got a few $100 million invested here or a few $100 million here. We have to look at where the totality of the market opportunity is, and we're nowhere near that. And so when we are nowhere near realizing that, we should be inviting all of this money in and allowing that money to begin to have the freedom and opportunity to build and grow and be whatever it can be. We should invite that investment in. So we'll see how things shape up going forward. It's certainly part of our fight each and every day, which is to educate you and to inform you and to entertain you and bring conversations, to you that you can learn from and you can see where we're at and where we can get better. And that's the key here. It's not about bashing what is, it's about looking at what could be and how can we get there. We've always got to be willing to do some self-examination and figure out what we're doing and how can we do it better. That has to be our mentality. Eric Winalda has said many times that we will never develop elite players in an elitist system. And when we look at the landscape of the global game, there is so much truth in that statement. And so those are the things that we've got to get better at, changing our perspective and reaching for the stars. Our sponsor this half hour is Duttkick Brand, DUTKIG brand.com. You can learn more about Duttkick Brand by going to duttkickbrand.com. When you place an order, you get 10% off when you use the promo code DWSHOW. Again, that is DWSHOW. And you'll support the show at the same time. So, double whammy there. And thanks for doing that in advance. These products are really amazing. And if you're a soccer coach and you don't have Duttkick Brand products in your coaching bag, you should check them out. They've got some really cool things, including waterproof paper. And we all know, put that notebook on the ground, it's going to get soaked at night. And so this is an opportunity to keep your plays and your charts and your planning sessions alive without getting sewed. So learn more at duttkickbrand.com. We will be right back after this with AJ Adcock. Welcome back into the show. Thanks for tuning in this Monday morning. We are delighted to have joining us this morning AJ Adcock. He is the Senior Girls Director of the Pride Soccer Club in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and the head coach of the Colorado Pride women's team that plays in the UWS, the United Women's Soccer League. AJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Daniel, for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. So give us a little bit of your story, your background. How did you get connected with the game, involved in the game, that you decided later in life that this is something you wanted to stay involved with?
Yeah, obviously, I'm the oldest of four, so grew up playing sports. Parents were both basketball players. For some reason, mom and dad hooked me up with soccer around age 3. Played all the way through high school, youth. Didn't play college soccer. Fell in love with a girl. Followed her to college, and then, like the story goes, we broke up about a month later. So my college career was cut short, and then my freshman year of college, I started with a rec camp, or competitive camp. And it kind of turned into one team that following fall, and then 2 teams the following year. And then I eventually moved over in 2009 to take a job in Birmingham, Alabama as a technical director. Spent about 10 years there, became a girls DOC. And then about 2 years ago, got an offer to move out to Colorado Springs, and have been coaching out there ever since.
So where did you grow up? What part of the country did you grow up?
I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. So I grew up in Georgia. And then, like I said, in 2009, moved to Birmingham, Alabama, which was definitely a different soccer scene than Atlanta, that market. And then moved out to Colorado.
So I want to do a quick, compare and contrast before we move on. Atlanta to Birmingham to Colorado Springs. What have you seen in those 3 markets here in the U.S.?
It's obviously changed since I was a youth player. Now you see more of the clubs combining and merging and becoming these mega clubs that usually have, some, Chelsea-based or some bigger organization that's setting kind of the curriculum and kind of handing that down. Birmingham, obviously a smaller market, so not as many soccer players. I can vividly remember, winning a state cup semifinal, so excited to go to a state cup final, and everybody's running off the field to go watch, Alabama or Auburn play football. So definitely a change from the Atlanta scene. And then Colorado has been, a hotbed for soccer for a while. You got players like Mallory, Pugh, who got some time yesterday in the game. It's a really, really good soccer state. And Colorado Springs is about an hour and a half south of Denver. The club I'm at is luckily one of the bigger clubs. But we're able to send, I think this year we're sending, 15 to 20 kids to go play college soccer and go on to the next level.
So, I know what you mean when you say the game finishes and you're running off for the Alabama and Auburn, games. I would just say, and you'll appreciate this. Well, at least they actually showed up to play first before going to the.
That is true. I have had several girls, but hey, we got really good seats for the Alabama game this week, and we're going to have to miss our state league game. And it's just, what are you going to say? Like, you can't make the decision for the kids.
Yeah, it is. It is a different world in Alabama, and for people that grew up in other parts of the country, it's not an easy thing to explain. You just have to experience it, and when you experience it, you're like, okay. Now it is, in the way that soccer, football is a religion in Brazil. Alabama and Auburn is a religion in the state of Alabama, and
correct.
It's so people probably are like, what are they talking about? But I mean, it is we could spend a whole show talking about the craziness of that influence.
And I also grew up in North Carolina for a couple of years, so I was lucky enough to be around the Duke North Carolina rivalry. So it's basically like me jumping from state to state trying to find the best rivalry and the best sport.
Well, you picked really good states to find rivalries in. I'm actually I grew up a big Duke basketball fan, so and I definitely understand. I think that's probably why I naturally gravitate, and are attracted to teams that are part of rivalries for some reason. It always seems to feel more like it means more. I don't know, but so tell us a little bit about your work there in Colorado. You come out to Colorado a couple of years ago and take over with the Pride Soccer Club in Colorado Springs. What is your role like as the senior girls director? Kind of what's in your day-to-day, job description? What are you trying to do, trying to lead, etc. with the club?
Well, wide question. Day-to-day job, a lot of it is organizational stuff. I mean, right now, because of the summer months, I'm walking to try to find a field to scout for our 8 a.m. U16s. So that's my day-to-day. But on a usual basis, it's, answering parent emails, getting things organized for either our next tryout or our next tournament or our next travel date. I'm in charge of our high school. So our club's broken up into basically 3 segments. So we've got an academy director who does our 9s through our 10s. And then we've got another middle director who does our 11s through our 14s. And I'm in charge of our 15s through 19s, but I kind of oversee all the age groups. So basically, if there's any fire that needs to get put out, I'm that guy who goes and helps deal with the fire.
So you get to deal with the parents then quite a bit, huh?
I do indeed.
Oh man. So I'm sure you have negotiated into your contract hazard pay for the soccer balls and cleats that get thrown at your face when you have some of those awkward conversations, right?
Yeah, it's one of those where I think I feel like the standard has kind of changed. About 10 years ago when I first started coaching, it was, hey, I'm the club coach. I know everything. You're a parent. You don't know anything. That's the separation. And I think over the course of time, we've got more youth coaches that have learned, hey, we've got to work together. Because if not, my kid has got other options to go play at a different club. And we're going to do that. We're going to do what's best for our kid. And you really can't fault any parent for that. And I just, again, people forget that as coaches, we're dealing with, you know, their parents' most prized possession, their kids. Like, there's nothing more important than that. And I think sometimes that gets lost when we're just trying to win a soccer game.
So let's talk about that for a second. The parent coach relationship, and you mentioned that it's started to transition or morph a little bit over the last 10 years. How have you seen it improve in the last few years in terms of communication, being on the same page, et cetera, compared to some of that, hostility or, this kind of, glass wall, like you can't cross the line kind of thing. Like I'm over here, this is my zone, you stay over there. How has that changed, and how have you seen some improvement in that area?
I think that the big thing is you got club coaches who are not only trying to educate players now, you're trying to educate parents of, here's the process, here's what you should be thinking about. Hey, your kid's not on the top team, this year, but it's a process. And if the kid continues to work and do A, B, and C down the road, there's going to be improvement. And, sometimes it's not overnight, which I know a lot of parents want. But I think it's just having a plan for a parent, like I said, trying to educate them a little bit more, just like a player. And I think, again, just being willing to talk to a parent and willing to get on the phone, or, I know the way that technology's changed, email can get a lot of people in a lot of trouble, or even text messages, because the stuff can get misconstrued. So I think those face-to-face conversations are obviously important, or even, a voice or a telephone call. Just because, again, there's a lot with communication that can be misconstrued. And like I said earlier, you're dealing with people's most important thing in the world. You want to make sure you get it right.
Completely. So when you're looking at, from a club perspective, development of players, what is at the club, what are you trying to achieve in developing your players, in terms of quality? Maybe it's characteristics of what you see as a developed player, the goal or the aim that you are looking at from a player development standpoint, characteristics of a player that is a developed player. So what are you trying to do as a coaching staff and as a club to prepare these players that are part of your club to become, the best versions of themselves?
I think obviously it starts, in my mind, with ball comfort and technique. I mean, it's hard to do much if you're fighting with the soccer ball every time you touch it. So little nuances at our younger ages of receiving across your body, building those good habits in. But at our 9s and 10s, it's more of like listening and learning, just because at that age, I really feel like you're teaching kids how to train, not so much the training aspect of, hey, if a coach is talking, your eyes are on the coach and you're not talking. Like, building those little things helps, our 11s and 12s. And then, it kind of trickles down or trickles up, I guess, through the age groups, as far as how to act. And then you're layering it over the course of time. And it also depends on the skill level of the player. We've got, because our club is as large as it is, we've got several age groups that got 5 or 6 teams, and these are 11v11 teams. So what, the challenge for the top team might be a little bit different from the challenge of a 4th team, but still trying to improve every player. Can they get a little bit better? Can they hold themselves to a higher standard? I think those are the things that we're trying to teach, and then reminding the kids at the end of the day that it is a game, and it's a teaching tool, and learning different things of, successes or failures, or, just different life lessons when it really comes down to it.
Looking at the landscape of American soccer, and let's stay on the women's side here with this. How have you seen the development change over the last 10 years as you've been involved in the game?
I would say a lot of it, obviously, there's always a new organization. When I grew up, you were playing basically, you play in your state league. You'd represent whatever state that might be in your local club. And then if you were good enough, you played ODP. It seems like the ODP has gone a little bit away over the course of time, where now you've got stuff like National League or ECNL or the DA. So I think there's obviously tons of opportunities for players to play, but I think there's this kind of wall where, not often do you see DA teams playing ECNL, and it just, in my mind, doesn't make a lot of sense. But I don't make the money those guys do. So what do I know?
Well, yeah, we have a dysfunctional mess at the youth space for sure. So when we look at the female player that's coming up now, that's being developed now, do you think the system that we have in place is helping us develop better players than we did 10 years ago, or do you think the system we had 10 years ago was developing better players?
I'll tell you in 10 years. I don't know, it's kind of hard to say right now, just because, it's always the work now we'll see in the future. We won't see it immediately. Obviously our success at the World Cup level, at the Olympic level for the women's side is high. The bar is high. We should be making the finals of these events. And, it's a little bit different, obviously, on the men's side. It was devastating for me as a U.S. fan for the men's team not to make the World Cup, but I don't obviously think we give the women's side enough love and, celebrate their accomplishments and the standard they're setting for the women in our country. I mean, the bar, like I said earlier with our youth sides, like trying to raise the bar, and that's, I think, what the women's game has done. I think college soccer, obviously, has helped out where you're getting a ton of women into the game and, getting their educations taken care of, which I think in the end, is very important, just because, especially in the women's game, I mean, injuries happen, especially ACLs and knee injuries way more often than the men. I had 4 of my U15s miss half of the year last year, or I'm sorry, 3 missed half of the year last year with ACL injuries, and you're just like, what is going on here? So, I think we're continuing to get better. It'll be interesting to see the run. I know there's all the drama with the women's team and dropping 13 and should they celebrate. But I think it'll be a great World Cup. And it's as a youth coach with all these girls at regionals, being able to get a group and watch the game together and, get on them for playing on Instagram, be like, hey, watch the game. Put your phone down for an hour and a half. You'll be all right.
Totally. When we look at the women's game, obviously the U.S. women's national team have been the gold standard. Every country around the world has been behind the 8 ball. I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with our college system, Title IX, et cetera, where we've, been ahead of the world in terms of some of those opportunities. Now, have we resourced the women's national team in a way that we should? I don't think so. I think we should put more resources than we have, right?
Yeah.
And however, compared to the rest of the world, we have put more than the rest of the world. And I think that has helped. That doesn't let us off the hook, and I want to be clear about that. I don't think that lets us off the hook and the federation off the hook for not putting more resources into the women's game and pushing as the gold standard and leader in the world. We should be leading that cause with FIFA as well, to say, hey, look, you need to step up and put more resources into the women's game around the world, as well as we're taking care of things here at home. But as we start to see some of these countries, Italy, Spain, put money, England, into the game, and we're seeing these national teams improve, we're seeing their women's leagues improve in player development and to see the way they're playing. I said this to on the show last week that, if you don't see what's coming with Spain over the next 10 years, you're blind. I mean, they are about to be a power in the women's game. They're not quite there yet, and obviously some of the results haven't gone their way, and they've got a big day today to see if they can get through and into the knockout stages. But the way that they're playing and the culture that they're building and the attendance that are coming to those women's matches is starting to grow, and they're starting to put more resources there. As we look at the women's game in the U.S., what are some things that we need to do to stay at the top of the women's game going forward?
Oh man, good question. I mean, obviously, I think resourcing it, making sure that we put just as much money into the federation and supporting, our national team, but also our youth national teams is obviously huge. I think building our own league. The NWSL has a couple of clubs that are really doing well as far as attendance and growing the women's side. I think more money needs to get thrown that way as well. We're in the UWS. Our conference is made up of 2 Canadian teams and 2 California teams. So we're a youth club, but we're traveling and spending the kind of money to go to these places so that our players can play against U20 national team players. I mean, we were able to play last week or 2 weeks ago against Santa Clarita and Orange County Galaxy, and you're playing some of the best women players in the country who aren't in NWSL. So again, I think it's fun doing, but I think it's also trying to figure out ways to raise the standard so you get more people watching the game, and especially the women's game, obviously.
So as you look ahead into the next 5, 10, 15 years, what would you like to see change so that the women's game can grow? Like what would you whether that's in the youth space in terms of the multitude of options and different leagues and pathways or funding resources, if you could kind of look over the next 5-10 years, where would you like to see some of these programs go in terms of improving player development, club opportunities, etc.?
For me, it's trying to keep as many girls in the game as possible. Obviously there's a break around U14, U15, and even when you get towards the later stages of high school, of girls dropping out and doing other things. I think, building that superstar. I grew up in like the Jordan era, so it was basketball, it was Nike, it was the advertising side of it to say, hey, this is who I could be one day. I think as far as the youth side and developing better soccer players, I think for me, I would love to see a more like a one league system where it's not watered down between ECNL and DA and state competition, just because in my mind, you don't have the best players playing against the best players because you didn't make the DA team, so now you're playing on the ECNL team. Well, now you as an ECNL player, you're not playing against this DA team. So for me, getting the best twofold: one, keeping as many players in the game for as long as possible. So even after you're a youth player, you're still wanting to kick a ball around, and then trying to get the best players playing against the best. I mean, those are the two main things in my mind to continue to grow the game and raise the level.
In terms of coaching and coaching, girls players, developing girls players, last week we had on Jess Nash, and she was talking about kind of a mentorship program that they're doing in trying to, get some of their girls as they're 17, 18 to start thinking about coaching and being a coach. How important do you think it is to get the right coaches and more coaches interested in the women's game or the girls side of a club in terms of reaching those goals that you were talking about in terms of player development?
No, I mean, I think we're always looking for female coaches. In my mind, there's only a certain amount of things I can do, and I can never, I can sympathize and empathize, but that's something I haven't been through, is being a woman. So, having female role models around at our club is really, really important. We try to look and hire as many as possible. We were lucky enough, I actually hired a woman named Jennifer Grubb She shot me an email just saying, hey, I'd be interested in, helping out with your women's semi-pro team. I'd also be interested in, coaching some youth soccer. I, do what everybody does nowadays, Googled her, and she was a national team player and ridiculous pedigree. So sometimes it falls in your lap, but then sometimes it's going to our local colleges and figuring out, hey, who are your grad students or who are your seniors, and would they be interested in doing a camp? And I mean, that's kind of how my pathway started in college. It started with a camp, and then it grew into a team and grew into some more confidence, and it kind of kept growing. So I think trying to obviously get there's girls who already know they want to coach and getting them involved early, but then it's those players I think who are about to leave the game and still trying to figure out a way to keep them involved in the game, I think is obviously very important.
When you're looking, at a part of the country where to get to other places requires a lot of travel. If you look at a U.S. map and you look at it based on population density, you start going west of the Mississippi and things start opening up really fast. And to get from Colorado Springs to Texas or to New Mexico or to Vegas or any other place, it's not, hey, we're in New York, we're gonna go an hour away and we've got 15, 20 different options. You may be driving 6-7 hours away to get to one option. How does that affect your budget? How does that affect your programming? How does that affect your planning as a club? This aspect of I wouldn't say it's isolation, but the fact that the density wise, you do have to travel quite a bit to get games or meaningful competition, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a culture shock for me growing up in the South and in Region 3 for the youth side, where everything's drivable. And it's only a couple of hours away. Worst case scenario, for most of the regional leagues we played in, it was maximum 2 or 3 hours away. Here, it's for our regional league, it's a flight. We're flying to Vegas for 3 games, or we're flying to Arizona for 3 games. We try to do a lot where we're letting parents know what they're getting themselves into kind of before we go down that road. But, it does get expensive. Like I said, we're at regionals right now. Hopefully we'll be here all week. And, we were looking at just the hotel bill alone was around 10 grand. So it's obviously planning ahead and starting to budget as early as possible, but, setting parents' expectations so there isn't sticker shock value. And then it's also very important about the why. Why are we going to this event? And it's got to make sense. I had my U14s qualified through a regional league for regionals last year, which is in Hawaii, which I was so amped to go for as my first year in Colorado. But we got to a point where we didn't have the numbers, so we only had 13 players. And then it's the question, are we going to Hawaii just to go to Hawaii, or are we going for the soccer experience? And we ended up not going just because we couldn't answer that why and say, hey, this makes logical sense to go to this event in the long run.
Yeah, I think when we look at how do we improve things, how do we build better systems in this country that do address the inefficiencies in the market, I think that's one area where that conversation often gets overlooked. It's like, hey, for example, we need to build a league, so let's have a national league, and I sit here going do you guys realize that our geography is basically the size of Europe? They're doing that for Champions League. They're doing that for Europa League. They're not doing that for Manchester United to travel to play Liverpool. And so this idea that we have this geography we have to deal with, and I think sometimes we just overlook it. We don't put enough value and importance into figuring that nugget out, and understanding that some parts of the country that is going to be a big issue. Whereas if you're in the Northeast, it may not be a big issue at all. And you can get around to a lot of competitions and places fairly easily, and then you're out west and it's like, hey, I've got to go 8 hours. That's a plane ride, and then it's hotels and it's this. And I do think it's just kind of sometimes overlooked in that conversation. So I want to wrap up with this, and I know you've got stuff coming up with this final question, and it's a question I've been asking a lot of our guests, and I just want to get your thoughts on this. If you were put in charge of American soccer for a day, you had supreme authority. You could do whatever you wanted with your day in charge. You could change anything. You could right every wrong, whatever it is. What would you do with your one day in charge?
Ask for a second day first. I don't know. That would be one I'd obviously have to like ponder and think about right off the top of my head. Obviously restructuring our leagues in the country, whether it be youth or, our pro side and, our semi-pro side. Again, figuring out a way to make it more reasonable for, the youth side, for parents to be able to pay for it. I remember the sticker shock when I bought my first cleats. It was just like, man, my parents have been paying a lot of money over the course of time. Honestly, improving the league system would be huge. Giving our women's national team the money that they deserve for the accomplishments they've had over the course of time. And then I'd also figure out ways to improve the college game. How can we, from a youth player who's starting to kick the ball around to, the best player in the country, how can we make that pathway easier and more accessible for people? I mean, there are people who can't pay. I mean, there are people who literally have to stop playing the game because they can't get to an event, because they can't travel there, because they couldn't afford the food there. So figuring out a way, again, I would love to make all of the club systems free. You would alleviate a lot of soccer parent problems if they weren't paying anything. But again, I don't think there's just one solution. I think it would be, start with A, B, and C and work our way through and, figure out, hey, is this a good solution? Yes, no, okay, well, do we need to continue improvement? And I think that's the basic thing, is continuing to improve, continuing to make the system better and raising the bar. I mean, how many times in a row can we win the World Cup? How many times in a row can we win our, U20s or the Olympics or whatever the event may be? I mean, the standard obviously right now is extremely high. Can we keep that standard over the course of time?
Well, I like your answer, and you're the first. Just to let you know, you're the first to say I would ask for a second day, and I thought that was brilliant. No one, and this is why I love this thought exercise. No one's gone there before to say, hey, I would take a second day. But I like where your head's at on those things, and I think, as we look at the landscape of American soccer, we are such a big country geographically. We do have a lot of resources, but we also have a lot of inefficiencies in how we do what we do, and there are a lot of areas where we can get better. I think we are at the top on the women's side, but I do see that if we don't start addressing some of these things, that's going to get tougher and tougher as the years go on, as some of these other countries are starting to put resources and investments and provide more opportunities for their female players, and there's no reason why we shouldn't continue to stay at the top and fight for remaining the gold standard. If we fall asleep at the switch, we're going to wake up in 5, 10, 15 years and go, man, that was a great run, but what happened? And there's no reason why we should experience that. We should fix it now. Hopefully we reach a place where the Federation starts to put more resources into our women's national team program and treat them with the respect and dignity that they deserve, and also that these other issues start to get addressed so that we can see these player pathways open up and more opportunities for player development continue. So, AJ, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate you stopping in this morning, and good luck there in Colorado and with all of your work. And like I said, appreciate you stopping by today.
Thanks, Daniel, for the time. Have a wonderful day and a rest of the week.
Thank you. That is AJ Adcock of Pride Soccer Club. They're in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and love where his head's at in terms of just continuing to push to reach for the top, trying to get better, trying to find a way to stay at the top, get to the top, make things more accessible, make things easier for players, for parents, for coaches as well. Solving problems starts with that. And so, you first got to wrap your head around what could be. We don't put a man on the moon without having a president in JFK who had a dream and who was bold enough to stand before the country and the world and say, we are going to put a man on the moon by the end of this decade. We have more technology in our pockets these days than that spaceship that went to the moon. And we just need to keep that in mind when we talk about what's possible, the opportunity of what is possible. We could be the greatest soccer country on earth if we set our hearts and minds to it. And we need leadership that is going to do that. Managers are not going to get us there. And what we've done in the past isn't going to get us there. Repeating the same things over and over, expecting a different result. We all know that is the definition of insanity. And that is what we continue to see from our federation. That is not going to get us to the promised land of becoming the greatest soccer country on earth. That is an issue for me where this all starts. It all begins and ends with leadership and vision. And if we get to a place where we have leaders who are leading from a place of bold vision, where every part of this country has opportunity and access, if that becomes our mentality and our mindset, that we have a growth mindset, the sky is the limit, and we can do amazing things. Speaking of amazing things, Charity Water does amazing things. Charity Water provides clean drinking water to people all over the world. They are changing villages, and they are changing people's futures all of the time, each and every day, and you can do something to be a part of that. Go to charitywater.org. Again, that is charitywater.org, and you can make a difference and change the world as well. We will be right back after this break from Charity Water. Thanks for tuning in this Monday morning, and appreciate AJ for joining the show as well. We will be right back after this break.
No one, no man, no woman, no child should ever have to drink green water with bugs, with algae, with disease in it. Bad water and a lack of toilets kills more people than all the wars in the world. We know how to bring clean drinking water right now to every single person on earth. And when you can bring water into communities, it truly transforms them. It changes everything. Or you could know that you'd made a difference. You could know that you had truly impacted the life of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't. We believe in a world where every single person has clean and safe water to drink, and we will continue fighting until that happens.
Welcome back into the show. Again, like to thank AJ for stopping by, sharing his thoughts on the women's game, on developing the next generation of female players, coaches, etc. Appreciate him stopping by and to chat with us. Coming up today in the Women's World Cup, we have 2 matches kicking off at noon Eastern. We have South Africa and Germany. And we also have China and Spain. And in that group, that match, China and Spain, is going to be, a lot on the line. Basically, both of those teams have the opportunity to advance out of the group. And I think that's going to be a fascinating match to watch. And to see, what happens there. At the moment, going into that match, Spain is ahead of China on goal difference. So with a draw or a win, Spain will advance. If China wins, they're through. So that's going to be a lot of a lot of drama there. And then later at 3 p.m. Eastern, we have Korea and Norway, and at the same time, we have Nigeria and France. And in that group, you have Norway and Nigeria both tied on 3 points, but Norway has a +3 goal difference for tiebreaker over Nigeria. So Nigeria would definitely need to get a draw in a Norway loss, or they would need to get a win in a Norway draw or loss to be able to advance. If both teams were to win, Nigeria would have to have a U.S. women's national team versus Thailand type of performance, not necessarily 13 goals, but quite a bit to overcome that goal differential. It looks likely at the way that group looks that Norway would be the team to advance along with France to get out of that group. And in the Group B, that Spain-China match is going to be the one to watch in that group because it could go either way. And we will be watching. All eyes will be on France today at noon and at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yesterday, the U.S. women's national team played Chile. It was a 3-0 result. And the player of the match was the Chilean goalkeeper. She was amazing. Inler was unbelievable. Watching that match, if you had a goalkeeper that wasn't very good or just kind of average, Chile would probably lost 6-7-8-0. She was just unbelievable yesterday. And even on the 3 goals, just it was really tough luck for her. Didn't really see that it was, her making mistakes. But then, she really turned it on in the second half as the U.S. kept pressing for more, and she just kept stepping up time and time again. Unbelievable effort and performance there as the U.S. women's national team won 3-0 and secured advancement into the knockout rounds along with Sweden, who won their match against Thailand. So the U.S. leads Group F with a +16 goal difference, Sweden with a +6 goal difference, and the U.S. and Sweden face off later this week for the final game of Group F. Both teams are advancing. That game is going to determine who's 1 or 2 coming out of the group. If Sweden were to win that match, they would come out as the top team of the group. With a U.S. draw or win, they will secure a top place finish in Group F. So it will be interesting to see Netherlands and Canada advancing as well. out of their groups, out of their group in Group E. So things are starting to shape up. We're starting to finish up group play this week and get into the knockout rounds, and then that's where some of this drama is, I think, going to step up. Is you're going to start to see quality to play quality, and so we'll see how this shapes up. But there are some dangerous teams out there. The U.S. Women's National Team continue to look good. And so all eyes are going to remain on France and see how things shape up in France as the U.S. Women's National Team continue their pursuit of a consecutive World Cup title. And that's what we're all rooting for here in the U.S. We'll see how that works out as they continue to advance. Another good performance yesterday. As they won 3-0. Thanks for tuning into the show this week. As I mentioned earlier, we will be joined tomorrow by Ken Benzinger. He is the author of Red Card. You don't want to miss that interview tomorrow. It's going to be really good. Wednesday, we'll have Jack Gidney. Thursday, Don Crow. And Friday, Anthony DeChico. Thanks for tuning in today. We will see everybody again tomorrow.